Amara sat quietly at the long dinner table, surrounded by her husband's family. The clinking of plates and forced laughter filled the air, but beneath it all was a heavy tension she could almost taste. It was supposed to be a simple family dinner, yet she could already feel the storm brewing in their glances and whispers. Tun's mother sat at the head of the table, her sharp eyes moving from Amara to her son. "So," she began with a thin smile, "how long has it been now? 3 years of marriage and still no child." The table fell silent. Amara forced a smile. "In God's time, Mama," she replied softly. But the words only opened the door for more comments. Tun's sister laughed lightly. "Maybe she's focusing too much on work. Some women forget their real duty when they start earning small money." A cousin added, "True. Oh, a wife's value is not in her job, but in the children she gives her husband." Each word landed like a slap. Amara's hands trembled under the table, but she kept her head high. She had faced worse. She told herself she wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. Tun sat beside her, his eyes fixed on his food. He said nothing. Not a word in her defense. Tun's mother leaned back and sighed loudly. "We tried to warn you, my son," she said, shaking her head. "This girl came from nothing. No family name, no class. What has she added to this family? No child, no progress. Just a burden we have to carry." Amara's chest tightened. She looked at her husband, hoping, begging, for him to speak, to say something, anything. But he didn't even look at her. His silence was louder than all their insults. Her throat burned as she forced back tears. "Excuse me," she whispered, pushing her chair back. She walked quickly out of the dining room, her heels clicking against the tiled floor, her heart pounding. She reached the guest room and shut the door. The moment the lock clicked, her tears burst out. She sank to the floor, pressing her hands to her face, trying to quiet her sobs. The laughter from the dining room echoed faintly through the walls. They were still eating, still mocking, while she sat alone, breaking apart. She thought of everything she had done for this family, how she had supported Tund when he had nothing, how she had given up her comfort to build their life together. Yet here she was treated like a stranger, a mistake. She curled up on the cold floor, whispering to herself through the tears, "I'm not a burden. I'm not." That night, when they called her a burden, they had no idea the burden was the only thing holding their world together. Amara, already working as a project manager in a construction firm, had her life neatly planned out. She believed in hard work, loyalty, and love. She wasn't born into wealth, but she carried herself with quiet dignity and the hope that one day, her efforts would build the kind of life she always dreamed of. That was when she met Tund. He was kind, charming, and full of big dreams. At the time, Tund was struggling to start his own logistics company. Most people didn't believe in him. They said he was wasting his time chasing a dream too big for his pocket. But Amara saw something in him that others couldn't. She saw potential, courage, and a good heart. Their connection grew quickly. They spent long nights talking about the future, about owning a business together, traveling, and creating a home filled with laughter. Amara fell in love not just with Tund, but with his vision. One evening, sitting in his small rented office with flickering lights and old furniture, Tund confessed how he was running out of money to keep the business going. Amara looked at him and made a bold decision that would change everything. "I'll help," she said simply. Tund looked surprised. "Help how?" She smiled. "I've been saving for years. I'll invest in your dream." And she did. Amara used her entire savings, 15 million Nigerian nairas, the money she had planned to use for her own property. She poured it into Tund's logistics startup. Together, they rebuilt the business from scratch. Amara handled the paperwork, finances, and strategy, while Tund focused on clients and expansion. They worked like partners in every sense, supporting each other through sleepless nights and tough beginnings. Slowly, the company began to grow. New clients came in, money started flowing, and they finally began to live the life they dreamed of. When Tund proposed, it felt like the perfect reward for all their struggles. Their wedding was small but beautiful. Amara didn't mind that they couldn't afford luxury. What mattered most to her was love, the feeling that she and Tund had built something real, both in business and in life. But after their marriage, things started to change. When the company became successful, Tund's family, who had been distant during his struggles, suddenly became very present. They praised his hard work, and called him the pride of the family, but they barely acknowledged Amara's role. At first she didn't care. She told herself it didn't matter if they didn't know how much she had done. Love, she thought, didn't need public applause. But as time passed, their attitude became harder to ignore. Tun's mother would often make comments like, "A woman should know her place," or "Don't forget, you married into a respected family. Behave accordingly." His sisters would laugh and whisper whenever Amara shared her ideas. They called her too forward, too ordinary, and sometimes even lucky that Tun chose her. What hurt the most was seeing how Tun began to change too. The man who once listened to her ideas now brushed them aside. When his family disapproved of something Amara said or did, he would take their side, not out of anger, but out of fear of losing their approval. He started caring more about appearances, about how the family looked in public. He began to attend meetings and events without telling her. At home, the warmth between them faded. Still, Amara stayed hopeful. She reminded herself of the man she fell in love with, of the sacrifices they made together. She believed that love could weather pride and pressure. So she kept giving her time, her support, her patience. Whenever Tund came home tired, she cooked his favorite meals. When his mother complained that Amara didn't act grateful enough, she smiled politely and apologized. She thought that if she stayed calm and loyal, one day they would see her heart. But deep down, something inside her was beginning to ache. She missed the old Tund, the man who used to tell her, "We're a team." Now it felt like she was fighting alone. At night, she would lie awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, wondering when love had started to feel like a battle. Yet, even with all the pain, she refused to give up. Amara didn't know it yet, but her silence, her patience, and her loyalty were about to be tested in ways she never imagined. After that humiliating dinner, Amara could barely sleep. Every word, every insult, played over and over in her head. A burden to this family. Those words cut deep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had changed so quickly. The man who once promised to protect her now sat silently while others tore her apart. The next morning, the house felt colder. Tund acted as if nothing had happened. He smiled, chatted with his mother, and left for work without a single word about the night before. Amara forced herself to stay polite, pretending not to notice the way his mother avoided her eyes. Later that week, while she was arranging some business papers in Tund's home office, she noticed something strange. A file she used to handle, the company ownership documents, was missing from its usual spot. Curious, she checked the drawer where she had kept photocopies. The copies were still there, but something felt off. Her name was no longer listed as co-founder. Instead, the documents showed Tund as the only owner of the company they had built together. Her heart stopped. She blinked several times, thinking maybe it was a mistake, maybe she had grabbed the wrong file. But no, the dates, the stamps, the signatures, everything was there. Someone had changed the documents. Hands trembling, Amara waited until Tund came home that evening. She held the papers in her hand as he entered. "Tund," she said quietly, trying to stay calm. "Can you explain this?" He looked at the papers and sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Amara, please, it's not what you think. Not what I think." Her voice cracked. "My name is gone, Tund. I invested my life savings into this company, and now it looks like I never existed." He avoided her eyes. "My mother has been worried," he said slowly. "She thinks you bring bad luck to the family business. She said it's better if everything is in my name, for peace. I'll fix it later, I promise." Amara stared at him in disbelief. "You did this to keep your mother happy?" "Amara, please," he said softly. "It's just temporary. You know how she can be. I'll change it back soon." Tears filled her eyes. "You took away everything I worked for, everything we built together, and you're telling me it's just to keep the peace?" He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "You've changed, Tund," she whispered. "You used to be my partner. Now I don't even know who you are." For days after that, Amara walked around like a ghost. She couldn't eat, couldn't think. She sat in their bedroom staring at the wedding photo on the wall, a reminder of a love that now felt like a lie. Then one evening, Tund came home with a serious look on his face. "Amara," he said carefully, "I think it's best if you move out for a while." She froze. "What?" "My family needs space," he continued. "They're uncomfortable around you right now. Maybe if you give them time, things will calm down." She felt her knees weaken. You want me to leave our home? After everything I've done for you? Please don't make this harder, he said softly. It's just for a short while. Amara stood there, speechless. The room suddenly felt too small, too heavy. The man she once trusted with her whole heart was asking her to leave her own house, the home they built together. That night, when everyone was asleep, she quietly packed her suitcase. Each piece of clothing felt like a memory of love, sacrifice, and disappointment. Tears streamed down her face as she folded her dresses, her hands shaking with anger and pain. Before leaving, she looked around the house one last time. The living room they decorated together, the kitchen where they laughed and cooked, the bedroom where they shared dreams. Now it all felt like a stranger's house. She picked up her bag, walked to the door, and whispered, "You said you needed space. I hope you can live with it." As she stepped into the cold night, a quiet strength began to rise inside her. Love had turned into survival, and she knew, from that moment on, she could never go back to the woman she once was. Amara stays in a small Airbnb, broken but determined. The room is quiet, with only a small bed, a table, and a flickering lamp by the window. Every night feels long and empty, but at least here, she can finally breathe without judgment. She spends hours staring at the ceiling, asking herself how the man she once trusted with everything could betray her so deeply. Sometimes she cries until her eyes ache. Other times, she just sits in silence, remembering the past, the laughter, the dreams, the sacrifices she made to build the life she thought would last forever. She remembers selling her car just to help Tun pay salaries during the early days of their business. She remembers skipping vacations, turning down promotions, and working overtime so she could have enough to support him. She had believed in him more than she believed in herself. And now he had taken everything from her. Her money, her name, her dignity. One morning, as she sits by the window drinking tea, she picks up her phone and scrolls through old photos, smiling pictures of her and Tun at business events, their wedding, and their first office. Her throat tightens. Was it all fake? She whispers to herself. Her thoughts are interrupted by a message from an old friend, Kemi, who had once worked with her. "I heard what happened." The message reads, "Please call me if you need anything." Amara hesitates at first but finally calls her. When Kemi hears her voice, she says softly, "Amara, you don't deserve this. You gave that man your everything. Don't just sit there. Fight for what's yours." Those words echo in Amara's mind long after the call ends. Fight for what's yours. That evening, Kemi connects her with a lawyer named Mr. Ade, who listens quietly as Amara tells her story. She explains how she invested 15 million Nigerian nairas into Tun's company, and how her name was removed from all the documents. When she finishes, Mr. Ade leans forward. "Mrs. Amara," he says, "if you have proof, bank transfers, receipts, emails, anything that shows your contribution, you still have legal rights. It may take time, but you can reclaim what belongs to you." Amara's heart beats faster. "So I can still fight this?" "Yes," he replies, "but you'll need strong evidence. Every little record matters." That night, Amara opens her laptop and begins the long, painful process of gathering proof. She searches through years of emails, receipts, and voice notes. She finds old bank statements showing the transfer of 15 million Nigerian nairas to Tun's business account. She finds text messages where Tun thanked her for saving the company. Each file she saves feels like a piece of her power returning. But it's not easy. The memories hurt. She remembers how hopeful she was then, how proud she felt whenever Tun said, "I couldn't have done this without you." Now those same words sting like a lie. Days turn into weeks. Amara barely sleeps. Her table is covered with papers, flash drives, and sticky notes. Sometimes she stops and cries quietly, wondering if all this pain is worth it. But then she remembers Tun's mother's words, "She's a burden." That insult fuels her strength. Meanwhile, on social media, she sees photos of Tun's family celebrating the company's new expansion. They're smiling, posting expensive pictures, and calling Tun a self-made man. Each post feels like a slap to her face. But she doesn't comment, doesn't call. She stays silent, because she knows her silence is her weapon. One night, while going through old voice recordings, she finds a conversation between her and Tun. His voice says, "Babe, once the company grows, we'll both enjoy it. You'll never regret investing in me." Amara closes her eyes and exhales shakily. I already do, she whispers. Her lawyer checks in every few days, guiding her through the legal steps. You're doing well, he says. Just a bit more evidence and we can take action. But Amara's heart is still heavy. Part of her wants justice, but another part just wants peace. She still loves the man who betrayed her, and that makes everything harder. Some nights, she imagines him walking through the door, apologizing, saying it was all a mistake. But when morning comes, she reminds herself that love without respect is just pain in disguise. Then one evening, her phone rings. It's Tund. She stares at the screen for a long time before answering. His voice is calm, almost pleading. Amara, I know you're angry, but please let this go. Don't take legal action. You're my wife. We can settle this quietly. My family is already under pressure. Don't ruin everything we've built. For a moment, Amara says nothing. The silence stretches between them. Finally, she takes a deep breath and says quietly, You took my name off your papers, but I haven't taken my hands off my power. There's silence on the other end. Tund tries to speak, but she ends the call. Her hands tremble, but for the first time in months, she feels strong. That night, she looks around her small Airbnb. The walls still bare, the air still cold. Yet something feels different. The sadness hasn't left, but underneath it, something new is growing. Determination. Amara sits at her desk, gathers her papers neatly, and whispers to herself, You tried to erase me, Tund. But I'm still here. And I'm not done. From that moment on, Amara stops crying over what she lost and starts fighting for what she deserves. Amara's lawyer serves Tund and his company with a legal notice, freezing all major accounts until the ownership dispute is resolved. The news hits like a thunderstorm. Within hours, the company's board members are in shock, investors are calling nonstop, and staff members whisper nervously in the hallways. Tund wakes up to dozens of messages and missed calls. Confused, he rushes to his office, where his accountant hands him the court notice. His hands shake as he reads the words. Ownership under legal dispute, all company assets temporarily frozen. What is this? He shouts. The accountant looks down. Sir, it's from your wife, Mrs. Amara. Tund's face turns pale. What do you mean my wife? She filed a claim, sir. It says she's the co-founder and investor. She's demanding her rightful share. By noon, the news has spread everywhere. Business blogs, newspapers, and social media are buzzing with headlines. Tund Adewale's company faces ownership crisis. Investors begin pulling out, fearing more legal trouble. The once praised family business is suddenly falling apart. At home, Tund's mother paces back and forth, shouting on the phone. How could she do this to us? After everything we did for her. She dials Amara's number repeatedly. When Amara finally answers, her voice is calm. My daughter, Tund's mother begins, pretending to sound gentle. I know you're upset, but please, think about our reputation. People are talking. You're destroying the family name. Amara takes a deep breath before replying. Mama, when you called me a burden, you didn't think about my reputation. Now I'm thinking about my justice. She ends the call quietly. That evening, there's a loud knock on her apartment door. Amara looks through the peephole. It's Tund. He looks tired, angry, and desperate. She hesitates for a moment, then opens the door. Are you happy now? He says coldly. You've ruined me, Amara. Everything I built is collapsing because of you. She looks at him calmly. Everything we built, she corrects. He scoffs. Don't twist things. You went too far. Freezing my accounts? Making my family look like fools? Is this your revenge? Amara steps closer, her voice steady. I didn't ruin you, Tund. I only took back what was mine. You ruined yourself the day you erased my name. He clenches his fists. You could have talked to me. You didn't have to embarrass me publicly. I did talk to you, she says softly. You just stopped listening. For a moment, there's silence. The anger in his face fades into something else, guilt. He sinks into a chair, rubbing his temples. I never meant for it to go this far, he whispers. I just wanted to make my family proud. They said you weren't good enough for me. And I was stupid enough to believe them. Amara feels a sting in her chest, but she doesn't cry. Not anymore. You wanted to please everyone, Tund, she says. And in the end, You lost the only person who truly believed in you. He looks up at her, his eyes red. I miss you, Amara. I miss us. I know I can't change the past, but please stop this. We can rebuild together. Amara shakes her head slowly. There is no us anymore. The woman who would have forgiven you doesn't exist. He stands frustrated. So that's it? You're just walking away after destroying everything. She takes a step closer, her tone calm but firm. No, Tund. I'm not walking away, I'm rising. He frowns, confused. What do you mean? She picks up a folder from the table and hands it to him. Inside are documents showing her full withdrawal of her 15 million Nigerian nairas investment, plus interest, all done legally, quietly, through the court's approval before the freeze was announced. I already took my money out last week, she says evenly. The freeze was just to make sure you couldn't hide or spend it before I did. Tund's jaw drops as he flips through the papers. You already took it? Yes, she replies. And I'm using it to start my own logistics consultancy, one that values honesty and partnership. He stares at her, speechless. You planned this? She nods. You planned to erase me first. I just finished your plan for you. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. The air between them is thick with regret and finality. Finally, Tund sighs, his voice breaking. I let them turn me into someone I don't even recognize. I thought I was protecting my family, but all I did was destroy my home. Amara looks at him, her eyes soft but firm. We both made choices, Tund. You chose pride. I chose peace. He lowers his head, defeated. I never thought you'd fight back. She gives a faint smile. That's because you mistook my silence for weakness. Tund looks at her one last time, then walks to the door. I hope you find what you're looking for, he says quietly. Amara watches him leave, her heart heavy but free. When the door closes, she exhales deeply. For the first time in years, she feels in control of her life. The man who once called her a burden was gone. And the woman who once depended on him had finally learned how to stand on her own. She gains respect and clients who value her expertise. Word spreads quickly that Amara, the quiet woman once behind Tund's success, has started her own logistics consultancy. At first, people are surprised. Then they begin to admire her. Not for her past, but for her strength, her knowledge, and her calm confidence. Her new office is small but bright, filled with fresh energy and honest workers who believe in teamwork. She treats everyone with kindness and respect, something she had always wanted in her own marriage. Slowly, her business grows. Clients trust her because she delivers what she promises. For the first time in years, Amara feels proud of herself again. Not because of someone else's success, but because of her own hard work. Meanwhile, things begin to fall apart for Tund. The court case and bad publicity scare away investors. His company starts losing contracts, and his once loyal staff begin to leave. His mother, who once looked down on Amara, now blames him for everything. If you had listened to your wife, she says bitterly, we wouldn't be in this mess. Tund tries to fix things, but it's too late. The damage is done. His pride has cost him everything. His business, his peace, and the woman who truly believed in him. Amara hears about his struggles, but she doesn't gloat. There's no joy in his downfall. She simply prays he learns from his mistakes. Her peace doesn't come from revenge. It comes from knowing she survived what was meant to destroy her. As the months pass, Amara begins to reconnect with old friends she had lost touch with during her marriage. Kemi visits often, bringing laughter and warmth into her new apartment. They talk, laugh, and sometimes cry about everything Amara went through. Each conversation helps her heal a little more. One evening, after signing a major contract with an international company, Amara sits by her office window, watching the sunset. The city lights begin to glow below her, and she smiles softly. She has come so far from that broken woman who once cried on a cold floor in her husband's house. She realizes that walking away wasn't a sign of weakness. It was her greatest strength. Staying might have destroyed her, but leaving gave her life back. She picks up her journal and writes. Sometimes walking away is the loudest way to speak. And as she closes the book, a peaceful silence fills the room. The kind that comes only when a storm has passed, and the sun finally returns. Amara narrates from her new office, looking out the window, free, successful, and finally at peace. The city below is alive with movement, cars honking and people hurrying, But inside her office, everything feels calm. Sunlight pours through the glass, warming her face as she sips her coffee and smiles. It has been a long journey, from the night she was called a burden to the day she took back her power. She thinks about the woman she used to be, quiet, hopeful, always trying to please everyone. That woman believed love would fix everything. But now Amara knows better. Love blinded me, she whispers to herself. But pain opened my eyes. Her phone buzzes on the table. She glances at it and freezes for a moment. The message is from Tund. Just 3 words. I miss you. She stares at the screen for a while, her heart still but no longer aching. Once, those words would have broken her, made her cry, or filled her with hope. But now they mean nothing. She takes a slow breath, smiles faintly, and presses delete. Then she turns back to her desk, where plans for her growing business lie neatly arranged. Her name, Amara Logistics Consultancy, is printed boldly on the folder. It's a name that carries her story, her strength, and her freedom. She looks out the window again, watching the sky turn golden. A soft wind moves through the curtains, and she feels something she hasn't felt in a long time: peace. They called me a burden, she says quietly. But I was the foundation they built on. And when I walked away, their walls finally fell. Hey besties. Two Hearts, thanks so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing stories. See you in the next one. Bye. Waving Hand Sparkles.